Hello, everyone. Welcome into episode 154 of the Stomp the Bus Show. I'm your host, Mark Harris, and we've got a little bit of everything to talk about. We got some transfer portal stuff now that the portal is closed. We have ASU men's basketball and women's basketball to talk about. We have the ASU football schedule being released. We have Willie Bloomquist getting an extension with ASU baseball. I think that's it. And yeah, so we'll talk about that here on episode 154. Before I dive in, please like and subscribe on YouTube, rate and review on your podcast platform of choice, and let's get started. All right, so let's start with the transfer portal stuff. ASU has added 24 new players in its portal class. And I'm not going to go through all of them because I went through that on the last show. Obviously, if you're an ASU fan, you know that the class is headlined by former Colorado receiver Omarion Miller, former Boston College receiver Reed Harris, and former Colorado State linebacker Owen Long. There were a few other important guys that were added. Where's Winston? Oh, yeah. Baylor edge rusher Omarion Winston. Again, solid player. You have the two FCS running backs, Ramir Davis from Northern Arizona. Raiden Vinesbright, wide receiver from Washington. Lyric Rawls, Kansas safety. Ashton Stamps, LSU corner. Tana, where's the guy from Georgia Tech? Cutter Boley, obviously, quarterback. Tana Aulo Tupuloa from Georgia Tech. He has a good chance to be an interior lineman starter. Luke Baklenko, a tackle as well, 6'6", 313. So it was a good start, and ASU added on. I am going to start with possibly their most important pickup since I last recorded, and that is Michigan State edge transfer Jalen Thompson. There were a lot of other Power 5 schools that wanted Jalen Thompson. Granted, this was late in the process. As you can see, January 13th. There was only a few days left in the portal opening at that point. And if you look through the quote tweets, so this is a Michigan State guy. Okay. Let's see. All right. Well, I can't quite find it, but there were definitely other Power 4 teams that wanted him. And to be able to come in late, right? Come in late, according to Alan Trieu of 24/7 Sports. That means that ASU had the requisite amount of money to pry him away from, I believe, like West Virginia and Mississippi State were the two other options that he was considering. And you know what? Like, his stats are not eye-popping, but he's a starter on a Big Ten team, and okay, Jalen Thompson. There's a lot of Jalen Thompsons out there. So, 2.5 sacks over the season. That's not, like, that's not some crazy impressive thing. One of them was against Western Michigan. However, he was rated as one of the higher run defenders as an edge rusher. And so when you add him and you pair him with Omarion Winston and then the other younger edge players that ASU has on the team, Albert Smith being one of them, Roman Petrie, it's a much better addition because there just aren't a lot of Power 4 edge rushers in the portal. It would have been great to get Noah Carter, right? It would have been great. Didn't happen. He went to Georgia Tech. So instead of getting him, you get Omarion Winston and Jalen Thompson. Okay, like, solid. Maybe they aren't going to be incredible, like all-star 10 sacks a season type guys, but if they can just hold up the line of scrimmage, play good run defense, rush the pass in a smart way, well, then it's worth it. So I think this is a really underrated addition in ASU's class. And, it's not like an eye-popping, oh my gosh, we got Jalen Thompson. Like, no, it's not. It's not like world-changing. It's not like Omarion Miller or Owen Long or even Cutter Boley. But this is someone who can be just kind of anchor one side of the line of scrimmage. So happy to get Jalen Thompson. Another important guy that we got, and I think a guy that's a little underrated is Florida International defensive back Josiah McGrew. So normally I wouldn't really say too much about a Florida international transfer coming to ASU. You know, obviously there are guys that you bet on upside and all that, but look at his stats: 67 tackles, 4 interceptions, 2 forced fumbles, and then 4 passes defended. So clearly this guy has a nose for the ball. Okay, this is not just like your athletic defensive back. This is a guy. You have 4 interceptions throughout the year. That's pretty difficult to get to. I don't think anyone at ASU last year had 4 interceptions. You know, like that's not nothing. Space throughout the year, and then you have 2 forced fumbles as well. Like that's really impacting the game as a defensive back, and he's got size too, 6'2", 185. This is a really underrated addition, you know. This is someone who can really step in and make plays. I mean, he's already done that, right? Like he's accounted for 6 turnovers. 6 turnovers as a defensive back, not a middle linebacker, not like a defensive end who's rushing. No, a defensive back. That is very impressive. So Josiah McGrew probably didn't get that much run in terms of like attention, but he's an important addition to this team. So I shouted out Thompson and McGrew. I also want to talk about, you get Nigel Pringle, a cornerback, 6'2", cornerback from Arkansas. Antoine Belgrave Shorter, a safety from Penn State. Chance Rucker, another cornerback, Michigan State. I think there was one other guy. But it shows they're really adding bodies in the defensive backfield, which I think is important. I don't want to say the defensive backfield was really an issue last year, but you want to have bodies there, you know, because that's a position where if you really have a weak link, it can completely wreck the entire defense. And so I think that, you know, making sure you have enough bodies there to overcome that can be very important. So overall, I'm happy with this class. It's ranked 14th overall on 24/7. On3 has it lower, but that's because On3 accounts for the players you lost in terms of the portal. And I understand that. I'm not going to fight too hard against that. What I would say is, obviously losing Levitt, yeah, you don't want to lose Sam Levitt. I mean, again, this is what I tweeted, and I don't think that it's complete cope, is the quarterback that ASU gets next year, something along the lines of this. He doesn't need to be better than Sam Levitt, right? He's probably not Cutter Boley or Cam Dyer or Jake Fetty or whoever, you know. They probably won't be a better quarterback than Sam Levitt in 2026, right? But they can be more productive than he was last year, even in the games that he played, okay? I don't think that's some ridiculous thing. And so with Sam Levitt, like, you're also part of the calculus of letting him go is the money. And I mean, clearly there's some level of like high maintenance with his family. The fact that he went into the portal with no contact and then proceeds to like let half the schools in the SEC contact him. Like clearly there's there's the injury. There's the injury that's going to keep him out for a bit. So we'll see how that goes. I don't really have a lot of takes on like, oh, his message that he left, like whatever, man. Like the only thing I had was like, dude, get out of here with the hashtag Sun Devil for life. Like, no, sorry. This is like, if you're going to transfer around, you can't be like, oh, I'm X for life. Like, I don't think so. Sorry. But anyway, you lose Sam Levitt. It is what it is. There's a lot of reasons for it. We've talked about it. You lose Javen Robinson to Wisconsin and Josh Atkins to Missouri. Okay, like Josh Atkins, so sure, it counts as part of our portal loss. Everyone went into the year thinking that this was Josh Atkins' last year of eligibility, I should say. And then it's like, oh, he's been granted an extra year. It's like, okay, all right. Like, well, to each your own, Josh Atkins. Like, go train. I don't, like, and exhaust your eligibility. But for it to be like, oh, it's this huge loss, it's like, is it really a loss if you expect him to be gone anyway? Javen Robinson, you would rather have him back than not. I'm not going to say anything like that. But it's not like this guy is like some world beater corner. Like, he was not exactly a fan favorite for ASU this year. Like, there's just no way around it. So he's a starting caliber corner, but I don't think that he's like a true like difference maker, So we'll see how that goes. Tate Romney to Oklahoma State, kind of a backup-ish linebacker. Sean Naa, he was he had fallen down our depth chart on the offensive line. I think he could still do well at UCLA, but I'm fine with our young depth. A guy like Zachariah Samp, who I did not want to lose, he committed to Texas State, even though it doesn't say it here. But that kind of shows me that, like, okay, like maybe his market wasn't as much as we thought. And then you get to Raleek Brown. Raleek Brown is going to hurt the on-3 transfer portal metric, but had he just entered the draft, would that have, like, either way for ASU, Raleek Brown is not back. So that's why I'm like, okay, like, yeah, sure, on-3 can rank the ASU class lower, but like, let's dive into exactly why these transfers are leaving, what their eligibility status is, and think about it through that lens. So, Owen Long, Reed Harris, Omarion Miller, Vines Bright, Baklenko, Cutter Boley, Tana, Alo Tupaloa, like all those guys, lyrical. Like there's a lot of good additions in this class. And another very important thing that isn't being mentioned enough is you also kept a lot of the important young guys. Jason Brown did not enter the transfer portal. AJ Ia did not enter the transfer portal. Rodney Bimage did not enter the transfer portal. Albert Smith did not enter the transfer portal. Derek Eusebio did not enter the transfer portal. Jalen Moss did not enter the transfer portal. Wade Helton did not enter the transfer portal. Makua Pule did not enter the transfer portal. Jalen Clem did not enter the transfer portal. Like you're starting to like all these like guys where you look. Boogie Wilson, Martell Hughes did not like. All of these guys are still on the team. We survived the portal without these young guys with upside leaving, and that is so important. Okay, that means the coaching staff is prioritizing guys with promise, and if it means that Javen Robinson leaves because there isn't enough money to keep him, then so be it, right? Matai Jefferson, or is it Matai Jefferson or Makai? There's a Makai. Okay, Matai Jefferson, yes. And then there's also Makai Stewart. Either way, both of them stayed. So you have a lot of the younger guys on the offensive line, and then you also add in Jermaine Mitchell from JUCO. You add in the two transfers, and like I feel pretty good about where this line is entering the year. It's not going to be perfect. There is no perfect offensive line, like especially with where ASU is in NIL, but overall, like the roster, I think it's in pretty good shape. Like I don't think you leave this portal and be like, oh, we really didn't have this. And I now, and by the way, had they not gotten Jalen Thompson, I would actually kind of think that, right? Like getting Jalen Thompson and Winston, getting both of those guys was a big deal because you're losing so much on, especially the defensive edges, right? You're losing Clayton Smith, Prince Dorba, Watley would go on the edge sometimes. Elijah O'Neal left as well. So like you're losing some productive guys, some legit players, and you're replacing them maybe with not as good of players. Like we probably won't have the equivalent of Dorba, Smith, O'Neal, and Watley, but I mean, I'm not completely upset about where they are. Interior defensive line, I think, is just going to get better. Remember, Zach Swanson will return from his injury. Mikael Gardner, who they got last year in the portal, injured throughout the year. I imagine he'll be back. CJ Fight did not leave, a future NFL defensive tackle, which will most likely spend his 4-year career at ASU, which is just so cool. And I didn't mention that, I don't believe, on the past shows. I just kind of forgot, but like it might be the most underrated kind of transaction or non-transaction of this whole offseason is just the fact that CJ Fight isn't going anywhere and you're not losing him either to the NFL, the portal. Like he is staying in Tempe for one more year, and that's just going to really help with your run defense, right? Like ASU's had really good run defense the last 2 years. CJ Fight is the tip of the spear in that. So, um, yeah, I think ASU maybe like I've seen them in like the bottom of the top 25 in some of these offseason polls, like I'm not really worried. And it's great is I'm not really worried about where ASU is in like the top 25. Like ASU just needs to like all these guys need to gel, they need to improve, get acquainted with the system, get acquainted with one another, all of that stuff. But now they can enter the season. There's no weighty expectations. There's no huge like oh, we got to prove everyone we're going to be last place. Like, no, they'll probably be finished. They'll probably be picked to finish like fifth or sixth in the Big 12, right? Texas Tech will be picked to win it. BYU will be up there. Utah might drop. Oklahoma State will be picked higher than they were last year, and they're going to be better. But like, I think ASU could be like in like the fourth through sixth range in the Big 12, and I think that's great. Like, that's a good spot to start the year, kind of fly under the radar but not super under the radar. You have enough talent to register on the radar, but you're also not like run it back, run it back. Run it back can be difficult. And I think I said this on the last episode. Like, I don't blame the staff's approach for kind of not supercharging the portal last year because you had all these guys coming back. Like, you have to trust the guys that you have. And ultimately, like, the trust kind of paid off, right? Like, your two best players are out for good portions of the year and you still win 8-4, and your defense never really faltered outside of one game. You'll take it, So I think they're in good shape. And that is a good thing because the schedule came out today for ASU football. And it's not ideal, but it's also not the worst thing ever. Right? I'll put it that way. So you start out with Morgan State at home. And I kind of like that we're not playing some like potential plucky FCS team. Like, respect to the HBCUs. It's a good thing. Like, ASU is literally giving them money to come out to Tempe. Like, however, just in terms of like an on the field football X's and O's thing, like this isn't like playing Eastern Washington or Montana State or one of these like FCS schools that could actually like in a game can beat you. So you got then you're at Texas A&M. That's going to be difficult, but I just have this weird feeling like these Texas A&M in these early season games, sometimes at home, like they're not unbeatable. And one of the benefits of getting Cutter Boley is he's not going to be like phased by playing in a huge not FCS, good God, SEC environment. ASU may lose. ASU will probably lose that game. Like let's just be real. It's more likely than not that they lose. However, when you have Cutter Boley at quarterback, who again, I'm not saying that he's like, oh, like that's the key to winning this game. I just don't think like Cutter Boley's not going to walk into that game and be like, oh, I've never seen this before, right? Like he's played big games on the road in the SEC. He's seen these crowds. Sam Levitt at Mississippi State, like the everything like got to him in that first half, and he was the reason ASU lost that game. Okay, it's just clear as day. So but anyway, Texas A&M, that's going to be difficult. It's a non-conference game. You're at London a week later against Kansas. You have a bye week after that, and then you host Baylor. And it was initially described this season that you host Hawaii after London. So I don't love that. However, Baylor has a chance to be the worst team in the league this upcoming year. They do. Like, Baylor could be not good in a big way. So it's definitely like, it's not like they're playing Oklahoma State where you have all these guys from North Texas coming in and a new offense. Like, you're playing them later in the year. Baylor, like, they'll have Lagway, I guess, right? And so he's a good player, or talented player. But they lost a lot of their guys on offense, like the Bryson Washingtons and Marion Winston on defense. So like that's not the on paper. All of this is on paper. That's not the most difficult opponent on October 3rd, and you have the bye entering that game, so you can adjust from the huge time change. Then you just have, after Baylor, you just have 8 straight games without a bye, and I don't like that. I don't like. Oof. I don't like that there's one bye week. I don't. But I also looked at the Big 12 schedule matrix. Big 12 schedule matrix with all the teams. And apparently that's just every team is just getting one bye. So I guess that's just how it is. Other than TCU, but they're playing a week 0 game in Ireland, so it makes sense that they get two byes. I guess it's just a quirk of the schedule, the fact that the season is starting, because a lot of times the season will start on like August 30th, August 31st. Like it still bleeds, and it's in the end of August. This year, it's just like starting on September 5th, so you just get way longer. You're just starting the season a week later. I don't really understand why the schedule is like that, and it has to be like that for a lot of the country too. But the side effect of it is like there's just one fewer bye week. So, but anyway, after Baylor, you host Hawaii. That has the potential to be a huge trap game. There's just no way around it. That said, like it will also be like it's not going to be the most physically taxing game that ASU will play this year. And when you're heading into Texas Tech, that's big. Like you want to go into Texas Tech not having played like a huge, like you don't want to have to play like BYU before you play Texas Tech, you know? And so, like as part of, in terms of that part of the schedule, like, okay, I can live with it. And then also with the Texas Tech game, this is from Pete Thamel. The Big 12 title game will move to Friday night in 2026, December 4th at 8 Eastern. And then the interesting part of this tweet is the Big 12 football schedule release, which is Wednesday, is highlighted by ASU playing at Texas Tech in week 7. And boy, some of the U of A fans in the comments, woo, they were pissed. Why is ASU getting the highlighted treatment? I don't know. Well, maybe if you win a conference championship, a Power 4 conference championship, if you were one of the 2 teams who has done that, then you'll be a higher brand. You know, I don't know. Apparently the Big 12 didn't look at ASU with a fairly injured roster. I'm not going to say completely devastated, but a fairly injured roster against U of A at the end of the year and be like, oh, I guess U of A is clearly the best program now, which some of their fans want that to be the case. But, and by the way, like U of A is a good program. Like I'm not like they're in good shape. They have Fafita coming back. Like they have some good portal additions, but just being like, why would they choose ASU? It's like, well, ASU has established in these 2 years in the Big 12, ASU has just straight up established itself as a more relevant program. And in the 2 years, a better program. U of A was better last year. They were, but they were not, they were one game better. And then in 2024, ASU was significantly better and won the conference. So cry about that. Anyway, back to ASU's schedule. They host Kansas State on the 24th. Kansas State lost probably 3 defensive starters to the portal. I think 2 into Indiana. 1 went to Texas Tech. So I don't think they're going to be bad. Like I like Colin Klein as a head coach, but I don't think I don't look at Kansas State being like, oh, like this is going to be a real tough one. Like it'll be difficult, but I mean, it's a conference. It'll be difficult. It's a conference game, but I don't think it's going to be like old school Kansas State. Like I think this is kind of a transition year for them. At BYU, that is going to be an incredibly difficult game. Like Halloween, that stadium's always rocking. Like it is what it is. Like it's not that's going to be a tough game. Like if you can split at Texas Tech and at BYU, that is an excellent result. That is an excellent result if you can split those games. Then you're at Colorado the week after that. I don't know what to expect from Colorado. I like Juju Lewis. I like Brendan Marion. But man, they've lost a lot of key guys in the portal. Jordan Seaton's gone, and I have no reason to ever be fearful of their defense. I'm sorry. Like this is a team that does not prioritize the line of scrimmage the way that ASU does, or a lot of these other teams do. So we'll see. I'm not gonna, it's not set in stone, but ASU should win that game. Like ASU will be favored in that game. At UCF is kind of a tricky one. You're going across the country. UCF, they were bad last year. I really don't know what to expect from them this year. This is this is kind of the game that I'm like, this is tricky. This is tricky. So that's one to watch out for as like a potential trap game. Hosting Oklahoma State. Boy, I sure wish Mike Gundy was still at Oklahoma State because I would be extremely confident ASU would win. Look, with Mestamaker, with all the guys they got from North Texas, like they're going to be a tough out. They're going to move the ball. They're going to score some points. That's just going to be how it is. The one negative I will say about Oklahoma State is like, so how many of these North Texas guys did you bring in? Right? How many of them? Like that's a lot of group of 5 guys. And I know Indiana just won a championship with a lot of guys from James Madison, but okay, does that mean it's going to happen again? Like, does that mean that that's the best recipe? Like, it's not it's a good recipe to be like decent for sure. I'm not like like Oklahoma State is going to a bowl game. They're probably going to I would be surprised if they were worse than 7-5. Like they're going to be at least good, but I do think ASU is capable of beating them. And I think, and another thing that's good is like Oklahoma State in the offense with Eric Morris. By that point in the season, there will be much more tape on how to defend it. They'll have shown some cracks imaginably. And so like, it's not like they're playing, if they were playing Oklahoma State in the 4th game of the year when they're playing Baylor, I'd be much more worried about it. I'm still a little worried about it. Like they're going to be a better team than they were last year, but it's I don't think it's like as bad as it could have been in terms of where ASU catches them on the schedule. And it's the last home game too. So that's fun. At Arizona to close the year, Territorial Cup. One of the interesting things about this rivalry I've kind of thought about, like I feel like home field advantage in the Territorial Cup is almost irrelevant, right? The stadiums are so close to one another. Both fan bases can get to and from Tempe and Tucson with little, friction. So that could come down to, who knows? Like that game, like I'm not guaranteeing anything. I hope that U of A just isn't as good as they were last year. And if that's the case, then ASU will probably win. If they're as good as they were last year, it's going to be much tougher to beat them. That's some hardcore analysis right there. But their defense probably won't be as good. They're having some guys go to the NFL from their defensive backfield. I guess ASU is as well, so I can't totally ignore that. But it'll be a good game. It'll be an interesting game. So hopefully ASU can get some revenge there. But you get more home. You get 6 home games, 1 neutral site, 5 road games. That's fine. The game against Kansas was one of their road games, right? So like you didn't lose a home game with the London game. So I'm fine with the schedule. It's also one of these things like we talk about, like, oh, who's going to be good now? Like I'm talking about this on January 21st. Like we don't know. We don't know how it's going to play out. So this is just my early impressions on the schedule, which I think ASU is in a good spot, but also not. It's not like it's the most ideal schedule ever either. So that's the end of that. Gonna do a quick baseball topic. Oh, actually, you know what? I want to talk about. I tweeted this out, and this was a big topic following Indiana winning the national championship. This is kind of my thoughts on it. So, first of all, like Indiana winning the football national championship is absolutely bonkers in the historical context of college football. It's bonkers. Okay. And let's just like, if Indiana can do it, ASU can do it. Now, there's some key things to know about that, though. Like, it's not just like, oh, if Indiana can do it, ASU can do it. Yes, but it's still an extreme uphill climb and will likely require a billionaire stepping in, but we can dream. And then the bottom, I also replied, like, it'll also be helpful if ASU like gets moved up to the Big Ten, which I don't know how like that doesn't, or some sort of Super League or whatever. Like, I do think being in the Big Ten helps Indiana in terms of this year, in terms of winning the national championship. I do think it's advantageous. So I'll say this, like, it's more likely today than it was last year, right? And I will say, like, you have a lot of the things with Cignetti. It's like, okay, he has, like comparing Cignetti to Kenny Dillingham. One huge advantage that Cignetti has is he's just so much more experienced than Dillingham. He has coached so much more. He's like 30 years older than Dillingham, okay? He's seen it all, and I think that reflects in how crisp Indiana is, and it helps in, like, some of their timeliness, to put it like, I don't know. I didn't necessarily leave the national championship game being like, Indiana is definitely better than Miami. I thought Indiana on this day did enough to beat Miami. And that's all it takes, right? You got the incredible Mendoza touchdown run. You have the back shoulder throws to Becker. You have really the punt, the block punt, like that was the difference in the game. You give them like 7 points right there. Like, that is an enormous swing in the game. Miami also had a missed field goal before the half. I anyway, like it would take a team. It would take that. Like, it wouldn't take ASU winning they're not going to win it like 2019 LSU wins his national championship. That's not going to happen. It would have to be like the 2001 Patriots, or the 2015 Broncos, where it's like you're winning some close games along the way to get there. Because like Indiana, they didn't exactly blow out Ohio State, but they won. They got the job done. So really though, like Dillingham, one of the things he shares, or has shared at least, with Cignetti is pretty good talent evaluator, an identifier. The team that ASU had last year, a lot of their really good players were not like super sought after in the portal. When Sam Levitt arrived, he was a third stringer at Michigan State. Jordan Tyson was injured from the year before. Scadaboo was an FCS running back. Shamari Simmons, FCS player. Keyshawn Elliott, linebacker, New Mexico State. Miles Rouser, New Mexico State. I'm not remembering. Oh, Lee Fautanu was a UNLV transfer. And then you get some guys like Mateer and Watley were Cincinnati transfers, but ex-Raphael, he's from Eastern Washington, Idaho State. And then like even some of the guys from high school, like Keith Abney, a 3-star out of high school. CJ Fight, a 3-star out of high school. You're getting some value in these guys. Maxi Iheanacho, right tackle, JUCO. Like Kyle Scott, right guard, JUCO. Like Ben Coleman. I guess Ben Coleman went like he was at Cal, so like some of these guys had better pedigree, but you get my point. Like a lot of the big players on the 2024 ASU team, and then obviously going into 25, they were not. They were from lower levels. They were from New Mexico State, Sacramento State, Idaho State, backups at bigger schools, right? So like you're hoping that type of thing can translate into this portal class where it's like, okay, well now you're getting starters at Power Four schools. You're getting a Reed Harris. You're getting Omarion Miller. You're getting Jalen Thompson. You're getting Amarion Winston. Some of the corners have had a lot of experience. Lyric Rawls, starter. Owen Long at Colorado State, but he was a 4-star portal guy. Cutter Boley started games Kentucky. I can go on and like you're getting guys now that have like way higher pedigrees entering ASU, and so you hope that that like talent evaluation thing continues. And so I think that is the shared DNA between ASU and Indiana. Now Indiana just did it at a way better level. Like I don't even want to. What Indiana did this year, like ASU, it's not comparable, but I do think the talent evaluation, the talent identification part, like that's a big shared trait. Now the difference is like Dillingham just needs to become a better coach, and I don't even say that as like he's bad. He's held no, like it's just that like Cignetti is just operating on a higher level, and I mean Mendoza was excellent this year too. So for it to happen, like you're going to need a special quarterback playing well. But the one thing, like we know ASU is looking for more money. Clearly, they've gotten the money. Like clearly, the money has been raised in order to get these type of players. Like Omarion Miller and Reed Harris, like they did not come cheap. Okay, so that's an important thing. And if you just keep building that, and it only takes one, you know, it only takes one. It only takes one person who's like, you know what, I have this expendable income. I'm just going to drop it on ASU football. Let's go. You know, and then things can really pick up steam. So I think it's fair to dream. I also think that it's still like it's still a long path ahead. You know, it's fair to dream, but it's a long path ahead, and it's still very unlikely. Let's just be real. Like it's still very unlikely. You know, just because Indiana won doesn't mean that some other like non-powers are going to win. Maybe a few will, but Texas Tech is closer to that than ASU is right now, you know? So it is a more attainable goal than it was, but it's still extremely difficult. And I don't think that should be like I don't think you should just like say, "Oh, if Indiana can do it, ASU can do it." It's like, "Oh, there's a little bit more to it than that." But you can dream. You can dream. That's what sports are about, right? Speaking of dreaming, Dan Bickley, who I actually don't dislike as much as a lot of Arizona fans, but I understand why they do. He had just this ridiculous take earlier this week about saying the Cardinals should try to get Kenny Dillingham as their head coach. So a few things like A, Dilly is not leaving for the Cardinals. Like, and B, if you're a Cardinals fan, I think Dillingham would be an unmitigated disaster as a head coach of the Cardinals. Okay. He's what, like 35. He has no NFL experience. He is also extremely like rah-rah guy. And I say that as a compliment for ASU. That doesn't work in the NFL for the most part. Like, yeah, it worked with Pete Carroll. You know what? Pete Carroll was an NFL coach before he was at USC. He had been at the Jets and the Patriots. He had made the playoffs with the Patriots. Okay. And he was like, Pete Carroll in 2010 was worlds more accomplished than Dillingham is right now. Okay. So if you're a Cardinals fan and you're like, oh, we get Dilly, like, do you actually think that's like a really good addition? And again, if you're Dillingham, he's smart. If you're going to go to the NFL, do you want your first job to be one where you have to go 6 games out of the year? You have to play the Kyle Shanahan 49ers, the Sean McVay Rams, and the Mike McDonald Seahawks. That's who you play 6 times each year. Good luck. There's a reason that the strength of the NFC West is why Sean McDermott straight up turned them down. It's why they're gonna get someone who's like not some like how do I put this, like not someone that a lot of other teams are after, and it might work out for them. I don't know, like you never know who's going to work out and who's not going to work out, but man, like at this point in time, it is a job with a lot of things going against it. There's just no way around it. So, it makes for good sports radio. It does, but and it got some it got some attention. I get all that, but it's unserious. It's not a legitimate take. I get it. Like, good for getting some views on the social clips, but it's not happening. And if it did happen, it would probably not work out well for either side. All right. Speaking of coaching, ASU is bringing back Willie Bloomquist for 2 more years through the 2028 season. I am lukewarm about this. So this is the tweet from Jacob Rudner on the 16th. ASU baseball has agreed to a 2-year contract extension with Coach Willie Bloomquist, sources tell Baseball America. The deal, which is pending ABOR approval, is expected to coincide with increased institutional investment. So that's the most important part, honestly. I guess I'll say this, like this deal at least provides stability for the program because he was entering his final season of the deal. So now you have him for a little bit, and you also don't have him it's not like this is some 5-year deal where it's super prohibitive if you wanted to move off him. If ASU was bad this year, they can move off of him. It's a 2-year deal, right? It's not like so long that you just can't you can't deal with it. And look, they did show improvement last year, even though it was kind of one of the most frustrating ways of improvement because it's like you were just good enough to make the tournament and you almost didn't. And they didn't close out the season well, but they did enough to make the tournament. They did a little bit better in the tournament than probably we thought, but there was also a huge gap between them and the best teams in the country. And so that needs to change. And you've got, 3 weeks until the season starts. Every year college baseball season just absolutely creeps up on me. Makes sense why they have it started, but and you know what they did get a bunch of good transfers, 3 top 100 transfers, and PJ Motzoritis, Dean Toyogo, and Cole Klecker. This is from Tom Harden of Devils in Detail. Devils in Detail has done a really good job. So, it's not like this program is entering the season in some horrible state, but there's also a lot to prove. And we'll see. I don't think Willie Bloomquist has been a disaster, but he hasn't been some huge success either. And so I'm not going to tell, if you're upset about this, I'm not going to argue with you, I get where you're coming from. I don't really have any we got to keep him. I don't think he's been terrible. And sometimes you kind of wish sometimes it's nice to have a coach who's just so obviously bad. There's no oh, well, what about this? There's no real argument to hold on to. And then you can just be done. You can just move on and it's a quick ending. It's like the previous women's basketball coach, unfortunately, Adair was, there was no reason to bring her back. And so it made the transition into the Molly Miller era much easier. And so if you were hoping for that in baseball, unfortunately they were just too good last year. And, men's basketball, there's been some elements of that as well. So we'll see how it goes with Billy this year. At least there's more institutional investment. I think that's important. So if he's going to succeed, it'll be with more institutional investment. That's how it would have to happen. And at least that box is getting checked. So let's go to men's basketball. All right. ASU played Arizona and Houston. And you know what? Despite losing both of those games, I would say that they overachieved in those 2 games because at least one of them was close, and that's a sad thing to say. But like the Arizona game, that was at least an enjoyable watch. You led at half. It came down to like the last minute of the game, and it's frustrating because it's like if they just play like with that, if they bottled that exact effort execution every game, they would have a better record than they do right now. But of course, that's not how it works. And then you go to Houston, you just get absolutely destroyed. You lose by 30 points. Not good at all. You're 10-8. You're near the bottom of the Big 12 conference. Although I don't, a lot of these teams ahead of you, really West Virginia and below, I'm not like, oh, how are we going to beat them? But you're still in the hole. And you obviously also have that awful Oregon State loss weighing down all your metrics as well. So it's tough. It's just like this team, this is not like the worst men's basketball team we've seen. In fact, of all the teams that Hurley's had, this is probably upper half. But that it might not be good enough still, and that's unfortunate. And you're probably going to have to sweep West Virginia and Cincinnati to keep the train on the tracks. Now, ASU is favored at home tonight. This is a game tonight at Desert Financial Arena. We know Bryce Ford is back. They just got embarrassed, right? And ASU, look, like their offense is, if you're going to be a 10-8 team, be one that scores, right? Like you're scoring 80 points a game. Now you're giving up 81 points a game. The rebounding is still bad, but I'd rather that than some of these like really offensively challenged teams that ASU has had over the years that are, in the same position at this point in the year. Like at least you go into any game being like, you know what, Mo Odom could just catch on fire and win us this game. So I'll say this. If you come out of this little stretch against West Virginia, who is, again, like you are a favorite against West Virginia. West Virginia is 12-6. They're a little bit better than you, but they're not unbeatable at all. Like you can beat West Virginia. Then you're at home for Cincinnati on Saturday night. Now they give Cincinnati a better chance to win, but Cincinnati is also 10-8, right? And they are likely going to lose. Do they play U of A? Yeah, they play U of A tonight. So they're going to lose to U of A most likely. Now, I will say they've kept things a lot closer with Houston. They played Iowa State fairly close. So I get why Cincinnati could be a tougher team to face. But I'm also not like ASU winning these next 2 games would not surprise me. And you know what? If they're 12-8, entering at UCF, once you get past this Arizona stretch, then you have 3 games at Utah, at Colorado, and then versus Oklahoma State that are not unbeatable. Now, it does suck, like getting both of these, Utah and Colorado, both at elevation, both on the road, that is an added difficulty. But if you can get through, if you can let's see. If you can go 5-2 in this 7-game stretch, you lose to Arizona again, you lose another one of these games. That would not be, what would you be? You would be 15-10. You would have an outside shot at the tournament. You would. So despite I think like having whoever made the schedule to have Arizona and at Houston within 4 days of one another, with at BYU around there too, like that's just a really, really, really tough stretch for any team. You're playing 3 top 10 teams in the span of 11 days. That's an incredibly difficult thing to deal with. So they're kind of out of that cauldron. And now, like, look, you're 10-8. It feels really bad. It does. The fan support is not there. And I'm not blaming the fans at all. Like, it's mostly been a bad product. But you're also not like officially dead yet. You are not officially dead yet. You win tonight, you win Saturday, 12-8. You're feeling better. You're feeling better, and you might sneak into one of these like bracketology graphics, because this is the Big 12. Like, this is not the Pac-12 where every like there's no opportunities to pick up big wins. And so some of these, like West Virginia, they may be highly ranked in the metrics or whatever. So I'm talking out of my ass on that last part, but like the point stands of like being in the Big 12, you have more margin for error. So we'll see. A team with a much better record, who was a road underdog. Oh wait, no, this is men's basketball. Okay, let's go to women's basketball. But Arizona State women's basketball, 17-2, and all of these 17 wins have been very important because they recently got destroyed by TCU on the road, but then they beat Kansas, right? Importantly, like, they're beating the teams they are supposed to beat. Okay, they did this past weekend at Desert Financial Arena. ASU wins 67-51, and now you're at number 22 West Virginia, where despite West Virginia having a slightly worse record, they're like 14-point favorites. So that kind of tells you how this game's going to go. Obviously, we don't know for sure, but they've got some good players, and like, it's a good thing that ASU women's basketball has banked all of these 17 wins already. So Big 12 play was always going to be difficult, and they weren't just going to go undefeated through it all. So at West Virginia, like, that's going to be tough, and you probably should just expect a loss if you're that big of an underdog. Now at Cincinnati, that should be a win. They suck. Okay, 7-12. So if you can just split this road trip, lose to West Virginia, beat Cincinnati, okay, you're 18-3, and you'll head into a game against Arizona, who they're not that good either. They're 10-8. So you easily could just go 2-1 in this stretch, right? And then you're 19-3. So they're in a good shape. Yeah, you're going to have these bad losses. But you know what? Like, going on the road and losing to number 13th ranked TCU. Okay, like, going on the road and losing to good teams is not some unforgivable sin in college basketball. So really like what Molly Miller is doing. Gabby Elliott's been a good player, along with McKenna Brackens and Marley Washenitz, Helosa Carrera as well. They're getting a lot of contributions from the roster. So really like what Miller has done in year one. All right, we're going to close things out with ASU hockey. Just unfortunate news, like, they're losing Jack Beck. They lost Colin Potter for the year. This is where the depth needs to shine through. So overall, they're 12-11-1, and they face number 4 in North Dakota in 2 games. Now, they've had 2 weeks of rest because they split against not University of Miami. They split against Miami of Ohio in the second weekend of the month after beating Air Force and Alaska Anchorage in the first weekend of the year. Now they're playing number 4 in North Dakota. Games will be on Fox 10, which I love. And North Dakota's good, but ASU can match up with them. They I believe split with North Dakota earlier in the year. Yes, they did. And so that was on the road. So if you can just do that again, then you can again attack the you have Colorado College, St. Cloud State, Western Michigan. Like, you can rack up some wins. So it's not great, right? Like, I don't think anyone was like, oh, I really hope ASU is 12-11-1 on January 21st, but that's where they are. And it's not over yet. This is the big weekend for ASU men's hockey, though. So we'll see how that plays out. All right. Thank you for watching and listening. Good to touch on all sorts of stuff. I'm really glad that ASU just made it out of the portal relatively unscathed. Thank God they didn't have a Damon Williams Jr. type situation that would have been just a real pain in the ass to deal with. Even if it ended up working out or the contract was enforced, like what happened at Washington, like that's still just not something you want to encounter. So, and you know what? Like I will say, one of the big silver linings of the way in which Sam Levitt exited the program, the fact that it was clear that he was leaving for, unfortunately, like weeks before the season ended, uh, you know, it didn't give ASU false hope. We knew he was gone, and ASU was able to pivot and identify who they wanted. We can debate about whether it should have been Cutter Boley, should have been someone else. At least he has SEC starting experience, and he was a guy who Dillingham had a relationship when he was recruiting him out of high school at Oregon. So it's not the most some crazy random player. He has some traits. He was a former 4-star. And Kentucky fans, prior to the, them maybe getting Levitt and then actually getting Minchie, that's a guy who they would have wanted to keep. And now I don't think Kentucky fans are like super upset about him leaving. Like I think Minchie's a good player. I think I would have been fine with ASU getting Kenny Minchie, but I'll take Cutter Boley and the high-end wide receivers and the rest of the roster that they got. So, we don't know how anything's going to play out in the season, but at least you can say at the end of the portal window, you're like, okay, like they checked off a lot of boxes. There's no like loose ends, right? And again, like prior to getting Jalen Thompson, the big need was like, hey, it would be nice to have another guy on the edge. And then they got that guy, a power 4 guy, not some guy from Louisiana Monroe or whatever. So, I think the program's in a good spot. We survived Michigan coming after Kenny Dillingham, potentially some SEC schools as well, potentially Penn State. So, ASU will probably have a pretty good NFL draft. That's a key thing to think about later in the year. Like obviously Tyson has a good chance to go in the top 10. Keith Abney, you're starting to see his name kind of trickle into the end of these first round mocks. And if you get 2 guys drafted in the first round, that would be excellent. Max Iannaccio has the chance to go on the first 2 on day 2 of the draft as well. So that's an interesting kind of storyline, and then also potentially guys later in the rounds. But overall, ASU football, good shape. ASU men's basketball, bad shape, but maybe not quite as bad as we think, just based on how they played against U of A, in all honesty. Women's basketball doing really well. Hockey kind of in the same situation as men's basketball. And then baseball starts up. They should be expected to make the tournament. They should be expected to improve from last year. And whatever you want to say about Willie, I've had my negative thoughts about Willie on this show, but he's not incompetent. And I think he'll have a better roster to work with than he's had in most previous years here. So, hey, we're here. And we don't have any crazy scandal surrounding ASU, right? Like that's been a theme on this show, and there's other schools dealing with that right now. And so ASU, okay shape overall, and the football program seems to be pointed in an upward trajectory. All right. Thank you for watching. Please like and subscribe on YouTube, rate and review on your podcast platform of choice. And as always, go Sun Devils.